Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen. Good to have you with us. 8:05 in the morning at Boston's talk station, WRKO. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Jeff is taking off today. A well-deserved day off, by the way. As we continue along on the real question, does this country have a shot at bringing it back to the values that made it great? We've seen, and the last caller before the break, calling any criticism of Barack Obama racism is absolute poppycock and balderdash. Number one, he wouldn't have been elected without white people. Whatever that guy thinks, the number of African-American voters in this country would never have been enough to elect Barack Obama. So let's put that one aside right now. White people elected Barack Obama. Number two, does this guy think we can't criticize him for his inaction about Benghazi, or for his having his attorney general take the phone records of the Associated Press over a 2-month period, or for giving those 2,200 automatic weapons to the cartels in Mexico, Sinaloa cartel and Zeta cartel, and then having Brian Terry, a Customs and Border Patrol agent, killed by our own guns? Does he think that the president shouldn't be criticized for his administration doing these things? Or trying to get net neutrality through again to control the internet so the conservative point of view won't be heard, if he can help it? He wants to transform this country into a single ideology. Not have a legitimate opposing point of view, but a single ideology. Why is that racist to criticize him for those policies? He doesn't find it racist himself. He understands people are going to disagree with him. And this old platitude about somehow criticizing in the old days when Jesse Jackson ran for president, it was racist to criticize him on his positions on issues. That's baloney. The reality is that if somebody takes a position you don't like, I don't care if his skin is white, black, yellow, green, orange, magenta, or chartreuse. What I care about is what the person thinks. And if it's something I disagree with, I'm going to say so. Jeff, you're on with Mike Siegel at Boston's talk station, WRKO, for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning.
Hi, my name is Jeff, and I know you're onto a different topic, but I want to talk about Eleanor Green and what she said.
Go right ahead.
I know this person didn't die of smoke inhalation, but I just want to make a point that, even if he did, Michelle Obama took the liberty to make sure everyone's eating healthy, so I don't understand why she wouldn't take the liberty to warn people about smoking. So even if he did die of smoke inhalation, it's Michelle Obama's fault for not enforcing people not to smoke. So either way, it's the blame of an Obama.
I appreciate it, sir, but I don't think it was about smoke inhalation from smoking. Even Eleanor Clift wouldn't suggest that. I think she misguidedly, Eleanor Clift, suggested that somehow he was locked in a room that had smoke in it, that he inhaled, that caused his lungs to stop functioning and no longer had breath. I think that's what she was talking about, which is complete absurdity. Absolute absurdity. Our number to Boston, 617-266-6868. Glad to get your calls. And it's about time we start calling it what it is and stop using these niceties circling around the corner. Let's talk about what this country needs instead of what the politicians think is palatable to the Democrats on the Republican side. They keep kowtowing. It's time they stood up for themselves and be counted. Ed, you're on with Mike Siegel in Boston's talk station WRKO for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Great to talk to you. Hey, one thing that occurred to me is that as long as those liberals have a stranglehold on education, we don't have a good hope of correcting the trends in this country, because whatever we do, whatever successes we have, will soon be changed over time. It might take a decade or two by the liberals adjusting what they teach and propagandize in the government sheeple factories.
I was a public school teacher for 4 years, and public education has gone into the absolute demise of any intellectual thought. It really is about dumbing down. It's about making everybody mediocre so that they become pawns of the system. You're right about that. Follow us and do what we say, and you'll be rewarded for that. That's what's scary about education today.
What do you think we can do about it as, say, parents or concerned citizens, taxpayers? What can we do about it?
Well, one thing that's an advantage, certainly in New Hampshire, where I see you're calling from, is the fact that you have town meetings. And everybody gets to speak and everybody gets to vote. It's kind of the old Greek city-state form of pure democracy. I think at the local level, that's where these things can be dealt with. And no matter where you are, people should be running for school boards of education and to be directors of boards of education or members of boards of education in your community to stand up for the teaching of the concrete subjects. How much of this stuff that goes on now is about political correctness, teaching about things that have nothing to do with being skilled for the future of this highly technologically advanced world? How much of it is really focused on that, and how much of it is focused on just the waste of time about the schools teaching values? And that's the question. So that's where I think Ed, that we need to go, is get people in office on the school boards who are going to take the schools in a direction of teaching the concrete subject matters that are going to get young people productive jobs in the future. Why are we having people come in from other countries for technological jobs? Explain that to me.
I'm totally with you, but I also want to take the chance to thank all the RKO sponsors. I think it's great that 680 is able to put shows like you and Jeff on the air.
Well, appreciate you being with us, and it's a good question. If you think about that, why do we have... Matter of fact, I mentioned earlier, there's a congressman who wants to cut a deal, a Republican, who wants to cut a deal with the Democrats and actually allow more visas for foreign scientifically advanced workers, technologically advanced workers, computer workers, people of technological skills to come into this country from other countries, increasing the number of visas. Why? Because companies are needing them, because we're not teaching the kids in school today what they need in order to learn those skills. You talk to any of those companies, Microsoft has had to go to India to get people to come here to work. Why don't we teach our own kids this stuff? It's because there's an effort to keep them from learning in order to keep them under control. You know, when somebody doesn't learn the independent thought process, guess what? They're under the control of the people who are in charge. We have this, as you all know, this troubling story, Boko Haram, which is an Al-Qaeda-connected group. They're an Islamic militant terror organization. Now, the reports I've seen are anywhere from 240 to 300 girls were taken from their school in Nigeria. This was back on April 15th. And they've been kidnapped. And apparently, some of them, maybe many, apparently are now being housed in either Cameroon or Chad, two neighboring countries of Nigeria, that this terrorist group got them out of Nigeria. The leader of this group is Abu Bakr Shekau. He says he's going to sell these girls into marriages and sex slavery. We're talking about human trafficking here. And this, again, is a terrorist Islamic group. The president of Nigeria, a guy by the name of Goodluck Jonathan, has waited weeks before even asking for any international assistance to try to recover these young ladies. He's done nothing. And now, of course, there have been some U.S. experts sent to Nigeria to assist the government, so now all of a sudden we're involved with law enforcement, intelligence, military experts. We're over there now. And there is apparently going to be some kind of a negotiation between the legitimate Nigerian Islamic clerics and Boko Haram to see these girls sent back within a week in exchange for insurgents being imprisoned in Nigeria, setting them free. Now, that's what happens in Israel. And I think Israel is wrong when it will take back one or two Israeli Defense Force soldiers in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian terrorists being freed. In effect, that's what's happening here. These girls are being exchanged, if this deal is cut, for these terrorists that are now in jail in Nigeria. Now, the bottom line is that why are we going over there? You know, you got Chuck Schumer screaming about it. You got Michelle Obama screaming about it. And all of a sudden, all of them are upset. But what have they done about the problem of Islamic fundamentalist terrorists in the first place. These are Islamic fundamentalists who took these girls, Mrs. Obama. And guess what? You don't want to call them, your husband doesn't want to call them Islamic. He doesn't want to use the word. In the annual CIA report on terrorist threats to America, they have sanitized it. The name Islamic or jihadist or Islamic fundamentalist is not in there. It's the same thing with the annual State Department report on Islamic fundamentalists. The word Islamic fundamentalist is not in there. The administration won't talk about it. As a matter of fact, Lisa Monaco, who's an assistant in the area of Homeland Security for the president, spoke at Harvard about 2 weeks, I think it was April 15th actually, and she said in the speech at Harvard, well, we've got these terrorists, but they're really not of any one religion. They're of all different backgrounds, and we shouldn't label one religion. Well, Ms. Monaco, you and the president can go fly a kite, as far as I'm concerned, on this issue, because it is clearly, unequivocally, the fact that these are Islamic fundamentalists. We ought to name them as such. Even Bill Maher, of all people, Bill Maher came out publicly and said that this whole thing in Brunei, where the Sultan of Brunei is imposing Sharia law, so now all the Hollywood crowd is now boycotting the Beverly Hills Hotel and the Bel Air Hotel because those are owned by the Sultan of Brunei, so the Dorchester organization, which he owns, so they're now saying we're not going there. So those two hotels are now empty. And that's a good thing, I suppose. But the problem is these people don't want to deal with the problem up front. They don't want to deal with it and define it for what it is. Now, finally, maybe they'll have to. And I'd say to Mrs. Obama, you're concerned about those girls? Then why weren't you concerned about getting these Islamic fundamentalists? Why aren't you going after the Islamic fundamentalists who use Islam for their own devices? That's what they do. Steve, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner on WRKO. Good morning to you.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
You know, the thing that irks me the most about this is sort of like what one of your former callers said. We should start calling these Democrats what they are, which is Muslim sympathizers and communists. We should, every time we talk about them, we should say that the Muslim sympathists and communists and our guys that they keep trying to basically send over there to fight these wars, the reason they have post-traumatic syndrome is because they've been in how many different conflicts? Some of these guys have been over there 6 times. What, are you kidding me? They're burnt out. We got nobody to send.
Well, that's because this president, by design, wants to reduce the effectiveness of our military. They're cutting the first place he's cut is the defense budget. It's the first budget he's cut. But if you're not going to define the problem, which is in fact Islamic fundamentalism, and then you have Arianna Huffington, when Bill Maher was talking about how we ought to name Islam as a problem, he talked about the fact that 80 or 90% of the Egyptians wanted to have Islamic law be followed, and that would be controlling. If that many Catholics in a country said the same thing, we'd be all over it. Bill Maher said that the Christians are not the problem. They were the problem maybe in the 14th century with the Christian Crusades, or the 12th century. They're not the problem now. It's Islamic fundamentalism. So it's interesting to see Bill Maher telling the truth about that instead of hiding behind political correctness. And Arianna Huffington said, oh no, we can't call it any one religion. Well, why not? Whoever it is that's using terrorist tactics, for the most part, they're hiding behind the Koran, using it for their own horrifying, violent, terrorist acts. And that's what we should be calling it. And so now all of a sudden, the terrible thing that these girls were kidnapped, but now all of a sudden they want to do something about it? Why didn't they do something about it before? And Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, didn't even name this organization, this terrorist organization, Boko Haram, as a terrorist organization on the State Department terror list until 2013, toward the end of the year, in November. That's only a few months ago. She left them alone all the rest of the time. And now they want to, Hillary Clinton should be held accountable for that, by not calling that a terrorist group to begin with. Anthony, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you too, Mike. Great show this morning, and sorry that you had to deal with that daily racist caller. But here's a fact for him. This is a slavery issue that's been going on since Americans bought them on the trade shores of Africa from the African people. These people have been enslaving each other for centuries. Barack Obama knows for a fact that other girls have been kidnapped since he's taken presidency, and other girls have been sold into slavery. So why now, and why just with this issue? They take over whole villages, so this isn't the first mass kidnapping, and it's not the first time that these women have been sold off into slavery. I asked the Democrats, where have you been?
You know, there was, by the way, you want to get another one, there was a Christian village in Syria, north of Damascus, and the Al-Qaeda rebels, the terrorists, came into that village and basically gave the people two choices: die or convert to Islam. Now, you didn't see Assad do anything about it, you didn't see anybody in that country do anything about it, and you didn't see Obama do anything about it. But all of a sudden now in Nigeria he wants to do something about it. What about those other people?
They don't care. They just don't care unless it's a political cover-up time or they need the scandal to use it to divert attention. They don't care. This has all been going on since he took office. Where has he been? And I'm sorry, but if he's a first black presidency, slavery would be a major issue with me. And I would want to make sure that it wasn't occurring throughout the whole world. And like I said, for 6 years, he said nothing. Now
I agree with you.
Scandal, voila.
I appreciate the call. He has said nothing until now. Unfortunately, you've got, and it's a very tragic story. Somewhere between 240 and 300 girls have been taken. That's horrible. But they're not the only ones. Human trafficking is going on all over the place, even inside this country. And what's he doing about it any place before? And I'll ask you the question. Do any of you want us to send military special forces troops to go into Nigeria or Chad or Cameroon and find those girls and free them? Do you want us to be doing that? Should we send our military to take care of this? And if we should, then what about all the other hundreds of thousands of victims of human trafficking? 617-266-6868 is the number to Boston. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. And what about the fellow who said it's racist to be attacking Barack Obama? Is it racist to attack a president for bad policy? Back after this at WRKO. Stay with us.
Yeah, I mean, the Republicans need to get over it. You know, Obama won the election. Stop being so racist. That's all need to get together and make this one country.
Sir, is it racist when a president doesn't protect... Wait a minute, sir. How is it racist when you condemn a president for not protecting a mission that's American sovereign territory in Benghazi, Libya?
Yeah, stop the hate. As soon as Obama got in there, you didn't want him in there.
First of all, you don't know what I wanted, so let's not get into that. If he didn't do the job he was supposed to do, why shouldn't he be criticized for it? It's not about race. It's about incompetence, sir. Okay, 827, good morning at WRKO, Boston's talk station. That fellow called earlier, ranting and raving about it being racial. Anytime you criticize Barack Obama, your comments about that, about the situation in Nigeria, we know that the State Department and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton have been attacked with serious criticism lately because she didn't designate Boko Haram as a terror organization, as I said, until November of last year. Why not? They're afraid to call it what it is. The problem in the world today for us in terms of terrorism, the primary problem, is Islamic fundamentalists. Let's just say it. But this administration refuses to say it for what it is. Damien, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station, WRKO.
Thanks for taking my call, Mike. It's Damon, by the way. But anyhow, I wanted to say Republicans need to stop this racism garbage that the Obama administration keeps pushing forward. Because if I'm white and the president is half black and half white, then how does that make me a racist if I criticize him?
It doesn't. Criticizing a politician should be standard fare.
If I criticized him and said, hey, I don't like the color of your skin, that'd be racist. But if I criticize him because I don't like the policy, and him being half white and half black, how does that make... It's just ridiculous. And Republicans and the leadership need to stop it and call it out and call it what it is and say that exactly. How are we racist when you're half white and half black? It's just stupid.
I wouldn't even get into that because it's not even an issue to me. It's about the person. And it's about his policies, and it's about his usurpation of power over people without authorization from the Constitution or the law. He's changed Obamacare about 22 times without the Congress approving it.
You should be in jail for that.
Well, I suppose you could make the case that he's violated his oath of office, and actions could be taken. I'm not sure it's criminal, but it certainly arguably is impeachable. So is the IRS thing impeachable.
Well, that's a bigger scandal than anything. I mean, anybody that's been... I want to ask you one more question, Mike. What happens in other countries when one political party takes all the power and shuts down all the voice and all the organization ability of the opposition voices to be able to get their candidates into government to represent them? What happens in those countries?
Well, look at Iran. That's what you're talking about. Iran. You're talking about the old Soviet Union, the old Russia. You're talking
what
about
happens?
Cuba.
The people rise up in revolution.
They've done it in the Middle East. They've done it in the Middle East in about a half a dozen countries. You're absolutely right. Damon, I thank you for calling, sir. Good to talk to you. 8:30 it is. Our number to Boston. Is it racist to criticize Barack Obama? Should we be sending our troops into Nigeria to rescue those girls when there's certainly a legitimate problem, but we have hundreds of thousands of people who are victims of human trafficking? Why all of a sudden now? And why won't they call it what it is, that it's an Islamic fundamentalist terrorist group connected to Al-Qaeda that took these girls? Why don't they say it that way? Maybe then they'd be more credible. A number to call, 617-266-6868. Mike Siegel here. Jeff Kuhner's off today. Good to have you with us at Boston's talk station, WRKO. It is 8:37. Good morning, folks. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner. Jeff has the day off. Good to be with you as we continue the conversation about really covering the gamut. Are Republicans caving in on values and issues and principles in order to accommodate Democrats? Do we have a president who should be legitimately criticized, as I do, for his violation of the Constitution on several grounds, for his incompetence in office, his failures in Syria, in dealing with Russia, in Iran, and even being laughed at by Western Europe, even when he was having the Chancellor of Germany, Chancellor Merkel, having her phone tapped, her cell phone, by the NSA. I mean, how far are we going to go? Taking those 2 months' worth of telephone records from the Associated Press, taking the phone and email records from a Fox News Channel reporter, giving those 2,200 guns to automatic weapons through Fast and Furious to the cartels in Mexico. I mean, how many more wrong things does he have to do before we're allowed to criticize him, even though he happens to be black? Somebody answer that question. Randy, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. My comment is alongside with that. The president is basically the quarterback. He's going to take the blame for regardless whatever happens, even though his running back or his wide receiver might drop the ball. I understand it completely. But when you sign a commitment to the country or to your team, you have to execute. I'm prior service. When I swore in, like any other Senate person swears in, they swear to do the job regardless. Now, if your chief in command tells you to execute, you execute. You can't say, hey, we're going to talk about it, think about it, see what we're going to do, and then we'll see if we get back to you. That's the president. Whether white, black, Chinese, or woman, you have to execute. I don't understand how people are still running around not doing what they're supposed to. They're not being impeached or they're not put in jail. Granted, this is a democracy, not a dictatorship, but still, you have a commitment to your country. Like I committed to my country. I served my 7 years in the Army. I did my deployment. I didn't refuse, because if I refuse, I go to jail. Even if I didn't like what the president had to say, what his tactics were, I have to do it. And Republican, liberal, whatever you call it, you have to execute. Whether you like the person, you respect the rank, not the person, that's fine. Racism or no racism, put that crap aside and do what you got to do.
Let me ask you something, though, Randy.
Maybe he's doing the right thing, maybe he's doing the wrong thing, but he has other pieces to that puzzle that has to do the same thing. And if they're not doing it and they're falling short, just like when President Bush got the alert that something happened 9/11, he sat there and read the book some more. I'm like, no, get up, execute. You have the right to do what you have to do. Granted, I didn't like how he did it, but I did it.
Well, first thing, Randy, I appreciate your point, but number one, President Bush sat there for 7 minutes. That was it, and probably, that was 7 minutes. The fact was, and you can criticize him for that if you want to, but one thing for sure, if you impulsively jump up and make some demand as president or commander in chief without thinking it through, I think you've got a bigger problem. He took a few minutes to digest what he was told. We can disagree about that. But the fact is that we're talking now about the present president. He came on the night that Benghazi was being attacked to talk with his national security advisors, according to the Secretary of Defense, Leon Panetta, his own Secretary of Defense, for about 15 minutes. Then he left and went to sleep. He's the commander-in-chief. Now, you say that you should... Wait a minute now. Randy, I let you finish, so you're going to let me finish. You said that the president, that you needed to execute your job, every general, every lieutenant, every colonel, every sergeant, every enlisted person. You're right. In a company. You work for a company, they pay you, you've got to execute your job. His job as commander-in-chief was to protect that mission, and he did not do it, sir.
Understood. Great. I understand. I completely understand that. But see, what I'm saying is, there was a plan in motion. Whether he went to sleep or whatnot, he's not the main captain or commander on that mission. That mission, whether it failed or strong, whoever was in charge of that mission is who to, hold accountable for. And his superior is the chief in command. There was a motion. There was something in motion. I'm not going to knock George Bush and whatnot. He had a mission in motion, but when he got to receive it, I understand digesting and whatnot. But, that's 15, 20 minutes, an hour, a couple days. It's in that time frame that he did what he had to do.
All right, but wait now. I said about protecting the mission. He's responsible. Even if you want to say that his being there 15 minutes is not a problem, why didn't they send in air cover? Why didn't they send in special forces troops to help that mission? Wait a minute now, Randy. The ambassador pleaded for months to get troops. They wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it.
Well, granted, I understand that. There's maybe a little bit too much here, a little less there. Granted, I understand that. But the simple fact is, what I'm saying with any of these presidents, the difference between this one just here is, say if he did, a lot of his stuff and a lot of his, things that he's appointing are falling on deaf ears. He's not getting the reaction and time, the efficiency that another president would get.
All right, and Randy, I've got Dennis who wants to talk to you, so stay there, and let's get Dennis on the line with Randy if we can, and have Dennis respond to what Randy... Dennis, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Randy, put this myth to rest. Andy Card went in to brief the president to tell him that the national security team is getting together and they're going to have a meeting on Air Force One in 10 minutes about an attack that was happening. The president was in complete control. Just because he didn't jump up in a panic and run around like a fool, and like he told those reporters during that briefing with the children, they'll talk about it after they're out of that meeting with the children, about what's going on. Doesn't mean the president was inept or in a panic mode or not in control. This president has done nothing in the past 1.5 terms that he's been in office. So...
You mean 1.5 terms of not doing anything? You mean President Obama has done nothing?
Of course. There's been legislation from his controlled Senate, and prior to the Republicans taking over the House, he had both houses, and they didn't even put a budget through.
My thing is, you're saying that he has done nothing, and as in presidency? What about catching bin Laden? What about executing this mission? What about dealing with a FUBAR case when you come in and you gotta clean up somebody else's mess when they made a decision and it still went wrong? We still support them, but at the same token, you messed something up and we got to come up and clean it. Nobody's going to do it right. There's not going to be a one way to skin a cat. You know what I mean? There's multiple ways. And we're trying, but if you're not getting any act right from anyone else, then your mission it's already failed before it even took off.
Well, but he did. Well, wait a minute now, and Dennis, I'll let you respond. The fact is that Barack Obama, with the Democrat House and Senate, passed a $787 billion stimulus package It wound up just being temporary make-work jobs, and the whole thing went down the drain, has no long-term impact on the economy. We still don't have all of our people working. We've got over 20 million people unemployed in this country and underemployed and gave up looking for work. It's no better than it was, even with all that money put into this.
Well, granted, I understand that, but this was coming a long time ago. Even if Obama didn't get elected, the next president would have ate this same problem too. He would have ate that, and we still would be out of work. It took me 5 years to even get a job coming back from Afghanistan and Guantanamo Bay. I had no other choice but to take whatever I could, and that meant my mopping floors, cleaning after my veterans that I take care of because I love them and they love me. That's the only thing I could do.
All right, Dennis, let me let you get the final word here, and then I thank both of you. Dennis, go ahead.
Come on. Facts are facts. Look how long it took them to put a budget forward, and they were in control. They put no budget forward because they didn't want to make the decisions. You can sit there and say that Bush drove the economy into a ditch. Okay, fine. But you know what? Obama and the Democrats got on there, revved the engine, and blew it.
I thank you both very much for calling. Randy, thank you for your service to the country. Dennis, thank you. John, you're on with Mike Siegel at Boston's talk station WRKO in for Jeff Kuhner. Hello.
Yeah, I got 3 points. The Republicans should take the racism card off the table by appointing more Asian spokespeople. And then what are they going to say?
Well, you know, frankly, Barack Obama, in terms of race, has had more youth unemployment in the black community than George W. Bush ever had. There's something like 35% black youth unemployment under this president. I don't think that's a very good track record, and I don't think those youth think so either. The number to Boston is 617-266-6868. Good to have you with us. Let me get your thoughts, calls, comments, reactions to this whole situation of, for once and for all, the Republicans calling it what it is, which is incompetence and the need for changing policies in this country and the need to define the problems so that we can solve them. You got to call it Islamic fundamentalism that has those girls in kidnapped condition. That's what it is. Why don't they want to say that, and why don't they want to fight the problem of Islamic fundamentalism in this White House? They won't even name it. We're back after this at Jeff Kuhner program, Mike Siegel in at WRKO. Stay with us. Back we are, folks, coming up to 8:52 on Jeff Kuhner's program, Boston Talk Station WRKO. Let's get to your calls, comments, and thoughts and reactions as we start with, let's go to, first of all, Bill. You're on with Mike Siegel, Bill, for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Mike, you know, I listen to this station, and I listen to fill-ins like you. Kuhner was kicked out of D.C., he was kicked out of Virginia, he was kicked out of Maryland, and where does he find a home at? In Boston, Massachusetts. And, you know, it's just...
Well, you know, when you say kicked out, I mean...
Yeah, he was kicked out. If he was successful down there, if he was...
It's not true. And I don't want to... Look, first of all, you know, one thing... Wait a minute, sir. One thing I've got a rule about on my programs is that if somebody who's filling in for me on my programs... Well, wait a minute, sir. You're going to hang on for a second. You want to make defamatory comments, you're not going to do it here. If Jeff's not here to defend himself, and I'm not going to let you do it. You want to talk about something else, go ahead.
No, okay, let's talk about those kids in Nigeria. What difference does it make what color they are?
It doesn't matter what... I didn't say what color they are. I said that Obama doesn't want us to define Islamic fundamentalists as the problem.
You're blaming Obama, President Obama, okay, that because the kids are black, he's taking more of an interest?
I didn't say that.
That's what you're implying.
I'm not implying anything. I said, why is he...
You are, Mike.
Why is that? Hey, listen, there are plenty of... Sir, don't tell me what I'm implying. Look, I tell you what, why don't you go away? You want to make false accusations against everybody on the planet, go ahead, but you're not going to do it here. I never said that he was concerned about them or his wife was because they were black. That had nothing to do with it. My point was, all of a sudden they're concerned about these girls when there are hundreds of thousands more, many of them black, sir, who are out there victimized in the same way. That's unacceptable. And to start defaming people in order to make your point, no. Make your point about your issue. And the fact is, if you don't define, as he has not done, that these are Islamic fundamentalists and need to be dealt with, and his administration never called this group terrorism until November of last year, they've not done their job. They're being criticized for that now. Hillary Clinton did not even define them as a terrorist group until November. Now what do you want to say about it? I appreciate the call. Next time when you call about the issue, not defaming people. George, you're on with Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Yeah, hi. Now, there's an old saying in business, and it is that you don't hire somebody you can't fire.
Okay.
So.
And are you referring to the president?
Well, take it for what it is.
I don't know what to take it for, sir. I mean, you want to have a riddle, you can do that, but you want to explain it? I don't know what you mean by that. And actually, just to make the point, public officials can be removed from office. You can fire them. Scott Walker went through a recall in Wisconsin, and he won. Had he lost, he'd be out of office. Alcee Hastings, a judge in Florida, was impeached and convicted, was thrown off the federal bench, became a congressman, actually, later. So don't say that you can't be recalled. President Clinton was impeached. He wasn't convicted, but he was impeached. So he could have been taken out of office while he was there. So, no, we have systems by which people can be taken out of office. Mike, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning, sir.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
I wasn't sure it was. There's so many mics. I named my son after you. If we're going to send people in there, to help the girls, and I think we should, shouldn't we do it quietly? Get a nice little 6, 7, 8 Navy SEALs, send them in, let them, just assassinate the big shots and get out.
Here's the problem. If we do that, and look, I feel just as much compassion for these girls as anybody else. It's horrible. But what about the other hundreds of thousands who are victims of human trafficking? And now that these girls are apparently in Chad and Cameroon, according to reports, that they were taken out of Nigeria, what are we going to do? Send our troops into 3 countries looking for them?
No, we can't afford that. That's for sure. But one thing before I go, the guy that just called, Bill, he calls all the time. The guy's a cracker. I mean, he's nuts. And he's always plaguing Jeff Kuhner and telling him, things like you said, get kicked out of here and there. We all know Kuhner's great. That's why he's doing so great in Boston. But this guy, Bill, he's a regular. I mean, he's on almost...
Well, but that's what's wrong on the left. They just make these wild accusations and don't want to deal in content and facts. That's the problem.
But we both know that Jeff Kuhner is it. I mean, I had somebody come into where I work the other day and said, "Oh, you got to listen to this guy Kuhner," and I laughed and my boss laughed because we listen every morning. You know what I mean?
Well, there you go. I appreciate it, and that's good. That's very good. All right, Linda, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Speaking of Jeff at WRKO, good morning. Hello, Linda.
Hello. Trey Gowdy made an interesting comment yesterday. He asked, had the administration talked to any of our allies in the area to see if they could get there to help out the ambassador and his men.
Oh, I'm not clear. What people to help out the ambassador? You mean you're talking about Ambassador Stevens at Benghazi?
Yes.
And what was the point that he was asking who to help them?
He was on one of the Sunday talk shows, or it might have been Greta Von Susteren show on Friday. He asked if the president had contacted any of our allies to go there to help the ambassador and his men.
Well, why would the allies do it if we wouldn't do it ourselves?
Well, at first when this unfolded, the reason nobody went was nobody could get there in time.
You know what? We had air cover that could have come in from Italy, not very far down the road.
Got there. They were managed to get there, but nobody got there to help them.
Because they were told to stand down.
Yes.
They were not allowed to fly in. Because Obama didn't want it to look like there was a terrorist attack that we had to fight militarily. Because he was running for re-election. That was more important than saving the lives.
Exactly. He didn't think about getting people in there to help them or getting anybody in the area that was closer to help them.
Linda, great point, and I appreciate it. And the bottom line is, he never ordered any cover, air cover, ground support, special forces, nothing. You fight it on your own. They were left alone to hang out there to dry, and 4 of them died. That was what Barack Obama offered to them and contributed to them. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Stay with us.
News at the top and bottom, talk in between.
Every time I try to get out, they pull me back in.
This is AM 680 WRKO, Boston.
Back we are. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO, and Rush made the point. The reason there's no economic recovery is because there's been no policy by this administration to grow the economy. There's been nothing done for small business, which is the engine that drives job growth in America. That's where people work, is small business. Fortune 500 companies haven't had a net increase in jobs since the 80s. And so we've done nothing to grow this economy. 20 million people plus unemployed, underemployed, gave up looking for work. It is a tragic situation for many people across this country. So that's why this economy is not growing, and it's a fraud to say so. Your calls are welcome. 617-266-6868. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner, as I said, at Boston's talk station WRKO. And glad to get your responses to a variety of issues we're dealing with, including whether it's somehow racist to criticize the president on legitimate issues. One caller made that point. Whether, in fact, this Benghazi hearing is legitimate, I say absolutely. We haven't had answers to the questions about the incompetence of this administration. He did nothing to protect those people. Then he lied about why it occurred. And Eleanor Clift is still saying it's because of the anti-Muslim video. She's totally lost any credibility on the left. They don't want to admit the truth ever if it affects them negatively. John, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mike. How are you? Good job today. All right, look at Mike. The reason he didn't give the order to go into Benghazi and do something was because Valerie Jarrett, the daughter of a man who belongs to the Muslim Brotherhood, gave the order not to. And it's starting to come out in various pieces of media. Now, as far as going to save these girls, yeah, you know, we'd all like to do it. But everything except for the ruination of this country this man has tried has failed, okay? You're going to send in, what, another SEAL team so Biden can rat them out and say what unit they were with? And then they can mysteriously die like the other ones did? No, absolutely not. And I feel sorry, and I pray for our military every day having to be underneath a so-called commander-in-chief who won't even let you fire until you're fired upon.
Not only that, he has no idea about what to do either. He's like Jimmy Carter.
No, he has an idea what to do, Mike. He doesn't want to do it.
Well, okay, fair enough.
According to Wally Shubat, and I believe him, this guy is nothing but an infiltrator. And I've known it from the beginning.
Well, look, the fact is he's got a half a dozen Muslim Brotherhood members who are advisors to him, number one. Number two, he wanted Morsi to stay in power in Egypt of the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Egyptians themselves kicked him out. They didn't want him because they didn't want the tyrannical control of Sharia law over them. That was the bottom line there, John, so thank you for calling, too. Bill, you're on with Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning at WRKO.
Hello, good morning, Mike. I think I can explain to you why the racism charge gets hurled at right-wingers, and it's not going away anyway anytime soon. It's because too often the most strident right-wingers do employ the rhetoric of the racist, and people remember. They remember. So if what you're saying is true and it's all above board, you should be a little bit more self-aware and a little bit less likely to employ the rhetoric. Because a lot of times what passes for conservative is far from conservative.
Well, let me ask you a question. Is Al Sharpton a racist?
I have no idea, but I don't hear him. All right, the thing that always...
Wait a minute. No, don't beg the question. Is Al Sharpton a racist?
I don't know. I don't follow Al Sharpton that closely. He's not elected to anything. He's just a commentator. So whatever he says...
you can say he's just a commentator, but he's on the left, and he is a racist. And Jesse Jackson is a racist. When Jesse Jackson called New York City Hymietown to make fun of Jews, was that racist against Jews, sir?
So when you hurl the racist charge, that's legitimate, but when it gets hurled at you, that's not?
No, what I'm saying is I gave you a factual documentation of what he said.
I'm factual documentation as well. When somebody hurls the charge at you, that you say that's not legitimate, but you feel perfectly free to hurl it at others.
Well, when did I say something?
To me.
When did I say something that you would say was racist?
Because oftentimes you pick up and run with the language of the racist. The whole...
Well, wait a minute now, sir. That's absurd. What do you mean the language of the racist?
George Wallace, for decades, said, "Oh, I'm not a racist. I just am standing up for states' rights. I'm just
You tell me what you tell me what I said that you think was racist.
Every time you say, "I'm not a racist. I'm just standing up for states' rights. I'm just standing up for the..."
I've never said that.
Exactly what George Wallace used to say.
I've never said that.
That's surprising to me because people who agree with you oftentimes do. And if I'm
well, wait a minute. Now, so in other words, you want to use an ad hominem argument because I associate with some point of view. All of a sudden, you want to ascribe to me a false and fallacious and defamatory allegation.
You are triggering people's memory, and you're not aware of it.
Well, look, I'm telling you what I see. I'm telling you what I see is a president who's fundamentally incompetent.
You act shocked when somebody hurls the charge at you, and in my mind, I'm thinking the reason you get that charge hurled at you is because of the rhetoric that you employ.
What rhetoric? The fact that we have a president who let 4 people die because he did nothing to save them or protect them as commander-in-chief?
I don't think that that's the issue at the hand. I think
it is so the issue at hand.
All right. So how does racism apply to that?
It doesn't. That's my point. He's just an incompetent president. Matter of fact, if George W. Bush had done that, you'd be screaming that we should have his head or have him impeached.
Probably not, because I think I understand it like most people in the country understand it.
Understand what?
It's a tragedy, and we should try to avoid it in the future. But to go back and now to say that it was somehow a callous disregard...
It was a political act. It was a political decision because he didn't want it to look like we were fighting terrorists during a re-election campaign.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. I think it was more of
course it's true.
Decision on the ground.
His own Secretary of Defense, Bob Gates, wrote in a book that he saw in a room with Hillary and Obama together, the 3 of them. Hillary and Obama said, for political reasons, we have to make this look like it's not a terrorist attack. Bob Gates wrote that in his book. You can believe it or not, but that's what the Secretary of Defense said.
I don't believe it. I don't think most people do. I think this is a command decision that the CIA doesn't expose their position. And it was a decision that these 4 guys, unfortunately, these kinds of things have to be made. These hard, on the ground...
Boy, I tell you something. He's the commander-in-chief. Whose job is it to protect our military, sir, in the Constitution?
Well, oftentimes you got to trust the person on the ground.
Whose job is it to protect the military?
What?
Whose job in the Constitution is it to protect the military and the country?
Well, he's not alone. He has...
Whose job is it, sir?
Chain of command.
All right, but whose ultimate job?
Every circumstance.
Who takes the heat for doing it right or wrong?
He takes the heat for it, and he's perfectly willing to take the heat for it.
He's not willing to take any heat for anything.
What do you mean? We've been hearing about it for months, years, actually.
He's not admitting he did anything wrong.
Of course not. He's not admitting, because he didn't do anything wrong.
He sat there on his rear end and did nothing to protect those people.
Because that was the decision that was made. It was a command decision.
Yeah, well, you know what, sir? If it was your kid, if it was your son there and he died, what are you going to say? Thanks, Barack?
Well, CIA people understand this.
Don't tell me CIA. They didn't make the decision. Obama made the decision.
I don't think that's true.
He said no air cover, no military cut. It is true. Bob Gates said so.
True.
The generals who were there said so. The generals said so who were there, and the emails
the general that was there. Tell me the general who was there on the ground.
The general who just testified last week. The general who testified before Darrell Issa's committee.
Right.
And also there were specific emails sent from Benghazi when the attack started to the State Department and to the White House and to the CIA. You're living in... Why don't you stick your head back in the sand? That's where you're living.
No, I don't think so at all. I see the grain of truth and the mountain of nonsense in both parties.
There's no nonsense. There's 4 people dead because Barack Obama, as commander-in-chief, didn't do his job.
It's a dangerous world, and we have people in dangerous places, and bad things happen when you operate in dangerous places.
Yeah, well, why did they refuse Ambassador Stevens' request for more security?
Well, do you know that there's a big... as far as how much security should be at UNL.
Oh, you're stretching your ridiculous argument beyond belief. Why is it that... All right, so why is it that
Great... argument that exists.
Why did Great Britain... Hey, sir, why did Great Britain pull out?
Only one point of view, but there's actually 2 points of view.
Why did Great Britain pull out and the American Red Cross pulled out? Because they couldn't defend their personnel. Why did they pull out and we didn't?
So we should have ran from the danger?
Well, either that or protect the people.
these people understand that they're operating in a dangerous...
No, they aren't.
Yes,
Christopher Stevens.
Yes,
Christopher Stevens begged for more security.
Are you trying to tell me that they didn't go into this with their eyes open? That
They thought they'd get protection
about the danger that they faced. Come on.
By the way, in August they pulled out a security force of Special Forces troops. Stevens asked them not to do it, and they did it anyway. The head of that Special Forces troop went on Fox News Channel and said, "I told the White House we should stay there," and they refused to let them stay there.
Oh, there's much debate about how much security should be attached to it. It gets debated endlessly. There's no easy answer.
All right, hold it, sir. Brian wants to talk to you. Brian, go ahead and talk to him, would you?
Hi, Bill. Can I ask a question? Where are you getting all this information? Because I think it's hysterical that the sycophants on the left like you come
Where are you getting your information?
Will you keep your mouth closed for a minute, please?
Certainly.
Thank you. What's funny is the fact that you guys keep coming out as if there's this open-air discussion by the Obama administration as to what is going on. But the Obama administration will not explain anything. They just keep their mouth closed, they circle the wagons, and they don't say anything. But yet, you guys on the left make up these stories about it's a command decision. Do I get to talk? Do I get to answer what you're saying? Hold on a second. Hold on. The guys on the left also complained about all the watergate for George Bush. All the watergate for George Bush, which I think it's horrible that those soldiers died. But the issue is, you are telling me, you're telling me that an ambassador, that he knew the dangers of going into Libya, so therefore he should accept that he may die. But yet, soldiers that enlist to go fight a war, you guys get all in an uproar about that. So when Ambassador Chris Stevens dies and the 3 other SEALs, that's no problem because they should accept the fact that they may die in Libya. But when people go to Iraq and Afghanistan to fight a war, you guys say that they didn't know what they were getting into because they joined the National Guard. Can you please respond to those 2 points?
I didn't say any of that. What I said is that those 4 people died in a tragic event, so that we should absolutely try and prevent in the future. Okay? But what the problem is that you guys now have said that this is what it was, and now we're going to assemble all the facts to prove what we already know. That's the problem. That's why the Benghazi thing is never going to end. What the stuff that John Boehner is saying, that there are questions. This has become like the repeated thing. There are questions. There are still questions about Custer's last stand. You're never going to get all the answers to all.
All right, let me get Russ on the air with you. Russ, go right ahead. You're on WRKO, and your friend Bill is right here with you.
First of all, Bill, did you ever serve in the military?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So you do understand...
Somehow because you served, that makes your opinion worth more?
Excuse me, sir. Why don't you just listen for a change instead of foaming at the mouth as you usually do when you get on talk radio, okay?
Why don't you answer my question? Why don't you answer my question? Because you served in the military, does that make your opinion more valuable than someone who didn't?
Sir, that's not where I'm getting at. If you weren't so stupid and didn't keep running your mouth, you'd understand.
I asked you a simple question and you can't answer it. A simple question.
Okay, so, again, I'll ask you. You said you served in the military?
Yes, I did.
Did you serve in a war zone?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so you don't understand the brotherhood when you serve in a war zone about leaving no man behind. Because if you believed in that, you wouldn't be so stupid and make dumb comments.
Let me ask you something. Were these guys in the military? These guys who died? Were these guys who were killed? Were they in the military?
Yes.
No, they weren't.
Prior military.
No, they weren't. They were private contractors.
No, 2 of them were Special Forces. 2 of them were in the Special Forces. They were all employees.
Former Special Forces.
They were all employees.
Private contractors.
And listen, stupid, that dumb party that you belong to does nothing but divide this country, okay? That's all it does. Class warfare.
I'm not trying to divide the country. I'm trying to find the place where we agree.
Discrimination, you fool.
I think that if you view it as the white hats and the black hats, the good guys and the bad guys, you're an idiot. You have the politics view of a child, okay? It's the truth lies between the 2 mountains of nonsense, okay? And that's what I'm always looking for.
No, except that you always are on the radical left side of the aisle.
You're a mind-numb Democrat, that's all you are, okay?
No,
I appreciate it. But gentlemen, I appreciate it. Bill, hang in there a minute. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. If you want to stay there, we'll come right back at WRKO. More coming. Stay with us. Okay, folks, 9:22 and a good morning to you. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner today. He's got the day off. Frankly, well-deserved. And Boston's talk station, WRKO, 617-266-6868. Bill is going to stay with us, and you can all talk directly to Bill. How's that? Bill, give them a chance to make their point, and then you can respond. Let's start with John. You're on with Bill, John. Go right ahead at WRKO.
Bill, real simple. You were in the military? You should understand there's one person and one person only who can give the order to go or stand down. Plain and simple. Argument.
John is gone. All right, so let's go to, why don't we try Bob, who's next. You're on with Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner, but also Bill. Bob, go ahead at WRKO.
Hey, Bill, you say you served in the military, and for that, I thank you for your service. I would ask you to look at Benghazi, not as a Dem or Republican, but as an American. Our commander-in-chief said he would get to the bottom of Benghazi, and he hasn't done that. There are so many questions that haven't been answered that I, as an American, want to know the answer to. I want to know why a stand-down order was given. Why wasn't a rescue attempted? Even if they thought that this battle was going to be over in minutes or an hour or so, we had documents in that outpost that were very valuable to retrieve. So even if you couldn't save lives, we had to save that documentation. And this here, I need to get to the bottom of this. Can you respond to any of that, please?
Sure. Why haven't you accepted findings of the military and the Senate on this?
Why haven't I? Yeah, because they haven't answered all my questions. I don't think why. What are the questions? As Britain and the Red Cross were evacuating, we pulled some of the security out of there, and we left an ambassador basically unprotected. That's incredible. They're either blunder or intentional, and I want to know which it was.
Okay, well, there are legitimate questions here to be asked, but the problem is that you've turned it into a crusade.
You know what? We just made progress. We just made some progress.
Unfortunately, the people in the Republican Party have turned it into something else. They've turned it into a circus.
You know what? Even them, I don't want them ganging up on anybody. What I want them to do is get after the truth.
Well, what is the answer that you're looking for?
I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican.
Me either. I'm a swing voter.
I hate this party baloney. We are Americans. The hell, you either have an allegiance to your party or you have an allegiance to your country. I have an allegiance to my country. Plaques on both their houses.
I agree with you there, but there's danger on both sides.
I need to know the truth. As an American, I need to know the truth.
Can you accept the fact that the possibility exists that you're never going to get the answers that you look for?
You know what? Seek and ye shall find.
I appreciate the call, and I thank you. And we'll try one more for Bill as we go to, let me get somebody who's been on there the longest.
Yeah, I can't hang on. I got to go. I'm sorry. I'm in traffic here.
Go ahead, Bill. Thank you. Let's go to Nick, who's been waiting quite a while, and I thank him. Nick, you're on WRKO. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Bill. Bill, just one simple question.
Well, he's not here, but go ahead and you can ask the question.
Well, what I was going to ask Bill is, in light of everything that's happened since his re-election, okay, the president, of course, and since his initial election, I would love to ask Bill, do you think he should have got reelected? Do you think he should have been elected in the first place? His answer would tell us where you're going to get with someone like Bill with their opinions, where you're going to get with them at all in terms of reasoning. My problem is this, okay? Whether it was a blunder or whether it was intentional, right? It doesn't make a difference. You made a good reference to Carter, by the way. When Carter was president, I used to say, well, is this guy a bad guy or an incompetent guy? And then I came to the realization, does it really matter? He shouldn't be the president. Problem is, and here's why I'm upset with not just Republicans, but other supposedly virtuous Democrats, I assume there are some, How come nobody really cares about the policy? We know what happened. We saw what happened. We don't know all the truth. No one's answering any questions. But how do we get there? And is that good policy? It's as bad a policy as what's happened with our farmlands, okay? How we've lost that industry, etc. These things are not good for the United States, but no one seems to care, and that's what's sad.
Well, let me just say to you, and people need to understand this. Every piece of information that's come out leads to the conclusion that everything that was done was for political reasons. Number one, he refused to pull out when the Red Cross and Britain pulled out because he didn't want to look like we were running scared. That's number one. Number two, he pulled out some of the security forces in August, and when I say he, it may have been somebody below him, but he's commander-in-chief. It's under his name that these things were done.
Exactly.
They left.
What I was going to say, Mike, was to Bill also was, and I'll get off. I apologize for taking so much of your time. Was the fact that he did make the statement, Bill did. He's not alone. Okay, so fine. When you're not alone and someone underneath you makes bad policy, makes bad decisions, do you get rid of them? Well, show me anybody in the IRS, NSA, any of these scandals, right? Any of these, this deterioration. Where has anybody, right, lost anything like a pension? No, they retire early, some of them, right? They keep their pensions, or they move on to other agencies. This happened with Fast and Furious, and it just runs the gamut. So why does that happen? It happens because you go back to the top. Back to the guy who's not alone. And yeah, he's not alone, but he is alone, and you're exactly right. He's the commander-in-chief militarily. He's the commander-in-chief politically, okay? I mean, governmental-wise, okay? He's not doing anything about it. Obviously, this is all his policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And, the bottom line is, it was political. Because, again, he didn't pull out because that would have looked like he was running, and during a re-election campaign, he couldn't do that. But they did reduce the number of security forces in August. The leader of the troop that was pulled out got on television and said he begged them to let them stay. And the White House said no. Hillary Clinton said no. So they were gone. Then, when this thing happened, everybody knew it was a terrorist attack. As I said, the general in charge of that whole region testified to that fact. There were emails out of Benghazi, out of the mission, at the time the attack took place, from people staffed there back to Washington, D.C., that this was a terrorist attack. They all knew it was a terrorist attack at the time, and yet they used this cover, the email from Ben Rhodes, the assistant national security advisor, said, let's call it an anti-Muslim video and make the president look strong. It was all contrived in order to look as though he was a strong commander-in-chief so that he could win re-election. And if there were 4 people who died because of it, so be it. And Secretary of Defense Bob Gates said the same thing in his book. He was in a room with Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, and they were talking about political cover for this thing, not about doing the right thing. All of it leads to the conclusion that they did what was politically to their benefit as they saw it. 617-266-6868. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Stay with us. Okay, folks, good to be back here with you. Time flies when you're having a good time, for sure. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station, WRKO, as we cover the gamut of issues related to, now, the Benghazi Select Committee in the House. And I think the point that we're making here is that there are questions that have not been answered. No one's been held accountable. They should be held accountable. Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State at the time, testifying before the Senate, said, why does it matter how they died? Well, it does matter. They don't want to answer the questions, and that's really the point. Mike, you're on with Mike Siegel at WRKO, in for Jeff Kuhner. Hello.
Yeah, we can't let this guy Bill off the hook that easy. I got to address a few things. Let's not forget why he called to begin with. He's accusing you and the Republican Party of using terms that are racially insensitive. Let me remind Bill that the Democrat Party is the party of slavery, of segregation. Franklin Roosevelt nominated a lawyer for the Klan to the Supreme Court. The current Senate Majority Leader, Harry Reid, voted to confirm a Klansman, Robert Byrd, the Majority Leader in the Senate, multiple times. The Democrat Party and the media are rewriting history, okay? The KKK is an offshoot of the Democrat Party. The left for long portions of this history have been racially insensitive and racist. This is unbelievable that this guy comes on this show and says these things, and people. This is the tactic of them. Come in, claim that you're being a racist, get you back on your heels, and then when you're defenseless, go after you for something else. Now, let me tell you why Benghazi matters, bud. And
before you do that, I just want to make the point that when I asked him for specific content of what was said that he considered racist, he couldn't give an answer. He never gave one factual answer to the question.
Of what he speaks, that's why. Because he's so up in the clouds that this guy watches Chris Matthews, watches all these left-wing hacks that sit up there and just rewrite history left and right. And let me tell you why Benghazi matters. There's an American citizen who spent a year in jail over a video of this fraud that was perpetrated by the current president, the former Secretary of State, who's obviously going to run for president, and the media wants to bury this. The left wants to bury this. This guy was up for re-election, and Candy Crowley interrupted Mitt Romney during a presidential debate and corrected his record for him. This is unbelievable, and people don't want. And Bill's over here saying this is about politics. About, it's not left or it's not right. Of course it's about left and right. It's about right and wrong. And this guy comes on the show and, I'm served in the military and blah, 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 blah. But you have to understand that there were 4 Americans that died over there, whether they were contractors, who cares? They were American citizens, heroes. They were left to die for hours fighting on the rooftop of an abandoned building in a foreign country. And our military, our president did nothing, and he's satisfied. Oh, people die, this is what happens in this, you go to dangerous places. That is a load of crap, and that guy needs to be called out for this. And this whole country needs to stand up behind the families of these victims. And we need to get to the bottom of this, because this was in the middle of a presidential election, and he used the media to form the narrative that it was about this video. And this is unbelievable. And the House of Representatives should do more than just form a select committee. They need to draft articles of impeachment against this man. This is unbelievable. And this guy comes on here accusing you of being a racist. This is infuriating. And I hope that he's still on the line. And if he is, I'm glad he's been quiet, because he needs to be educated, because it's unreal what's going on in this country. So thank you for having me on.
Mike, thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Dave, you're next with Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I'm going to straighten Bill out right now. Okay, number one, this incident occurred, Benghazi occurred in 2012, September 11th.
That's right.
Does that ring a bell? Okay. There were 4 attacks, one of them being an assassination attempt on that consulate. I'm talking about bombings that led up to September in the same year, Bill, in the same year. Do you think that it is competent or incompetent for a president to say, well, geez, I think there might be a call for extra security? On September 11th of 2012, after 3 to 4 bombings on the consulate. And Bill thinks that it's competent for the president to sit there and say, well, geez, I don't think, I think nothing needs to change. Can you just let me know if something occurs? I'm going to leave this up to you guys, considering this is just any other day out of the year, and nothing's been going on in Libya, and there hasn't been a revolution there that we participated in. So this is incredible. This bill is so infuriating because he exemplifies what is wrong with this country. I mean, from his charges of racism, this baseless charge that he has, that he throws at Republicans that have been primarily responsible for affirmative action in this country and doing everything they can to lift up the minorities in America to have opportunity. But yet somehow everything we do is wrong. But yet we have the best standard of living for the minorities on the face of the globe.
All right, your points are right on. Number one, It was in April of 2012 that there was an earlier attack. There were a couple of others, as he said, so there were warnings. And yet nothing was done to protect those people. It was a political decision to leave it alone so that it wouldn't look like there was terrorism intimidating this president. He left it alone. It was benign neglect. Turned out to be malignant neglect because 4 people died. All right, let's go back to your calls. And that was right on point about the fact that there had been previous attacks there, too. Patrick, you're on with Mike Siegel and for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station WRKO. Good morning.
Hello, am I on?
Yeah, you're on.
You know what? I just turned you on a little while ago, and I heard that one Bill guy and some of these callers, and I loved all these people that defend Barrio, Barack. Where was he at this past week and this weekend? He's out in California where I live, and he's out campaigning, and that's exactly what he went and did after that day. And I love how they defend this man. He hasn't done nothing as president, and it just, he got Osama bin Laden. They don't mention all the Navy SEALs that have been killed, and then the helicopter that mysteriously got blown down over in Afghanistan with the rest of the team on there. It's just, I can't believe these people that defend this man.
Well, the ability to defend him is getting lesser and lesser and lesser. There's no one, if they want to be genuine about it, who could defend him. And the problem is that there is a knee-jerk reaction from the left side of the aisle that's politically correct. The media refuse to cover legitimately the issues of this administration. You have to go to the London Sunday Telegraph or other foreign newspapers online in order to get the truth about what's happening in this administration, because you don't get it from the media in this country. You won't get it from Brian Williams. You won't get it from Katie Couric. You won't get it from Matt Lauer. You're not going to get it from any of the people on these major mainstream networks. It's not going to happen from Barbara Walters either.
You mean to tell me MSNBC is not real news? No, I'm just kidding. Every time I hear these people spewing talking points about things, it's like I can just hear the Rachel Maddow and the Ed Schultz and all these other frauds coming out of what they're taught. It just blows me away how people...
Let me tell you something. Rachel Maddow is known to be the one who sets the talking points and the agenda. And she makes no bones about the fact that she has an agenda, and she has talking points, and she has a point of view, and she's the one who has the most influence to make the network appear the way it does. So, there you are. You got Christopher Matthews, who gets on his hands and knees to Barack Obama, salivating over how great the guy is. He's done nothing.
I know.
He's not a leader.
Do you think that the White House controls MSNBC? I think they must get a memo every day or something. It just seems like, in the way they spew, but I know what you mean about Rachel Maddow. I fully agree with you.
It's a codependent relationship. By convenience, MSNBC, by design, takes that position. And by the way, there have been third-party independent analyses comparing the bias, so-called, of MSNBC and the Fox News Channel. MSNBC has about double the number of, in terms of percentage, of bias and slanted news, as does Fox. It's way beyond Fox in terms of its slanted left-wing arrogance, and that's just the way it is. If you watch it and content analyze the reports, that's just how it appears, and that's just what they do by design. And they make the point. Phil Griffin, the guy who runs MSNBC, says we're not here to be a news network. We're here to be a point of view. So that's what he is. All right, let's go to Tom. Tom, you're on with Mike Siegel and for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. One of the things that bothers me most about the whole Benghazi story, and you don't hear people talk about it, is I believe it was the 2 of the guys who came from the annex to try to help them. These guys are highly trained, and they lazed the target, meaning they designated a target for support to come in, and it's precision ammunition. Guys that skilled don't drop their weapons and point a laser at something unless they expect support. They must have been online with somebody that says we have to, and there's memos that show that they would say we have to target laze the mortar that was firing on them. And there's got to be a point where they must have realized that, we're left to die. No one's coming to save us. And that breaks my heart.
I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're right. Because there was look, the fact was they had military capability in Italy, which is only right down the road from Libya. They could have brought in military cover from Italy, aircraft that were there. And instead they were told, leave it alone, nobody comes in, let them fight it out. And that's what this administration did, was to leave those people there to fight on their own so that it wouldn't look like we had to go respond with big military reaction to a so-called terrorist attack, because Obama didn't want to look weak during a time of a run for re-election. He put that above saving the lives of the people there as commander-in-chief. That's what he did. That's on the record. And that's what hopefully this select committee is going to find in the House under Congressman Trey Gowdy. I thank you for calling, sir. Good to have you with us. 9:49 at Boston's talk station, WRKO. Jeff Kuhner program, Mike Siegel in at 617-266-6868. Your calls are welcome right after this. Okay, folks, here we are, 9:53 at WRKO. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. We're going to John, I should say. John, you're on with Mike Siegel and for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning to you.
Oh.
Yes, sir, you're on.
Okay, this Bill person said that there was nobody was told to stand down. I think he said something to that effect. Anyway, another caller called to defend the military code. Did the military code leave no man behind? There was a general in charge of AFRICOM, Carter Ham, who that very night of Benghazi was dismissed from his command. A second in command was told to take his weapon, and he was dismissed and then moved to another area. He had 2 years to serve. By April, he was out of the army. And now, Anwar al-Sadat is an outfit that come from Egypt. And remember, the first thing Mohammed
no, it's on Anwar al-Ariya. It's not. Anwar al-Sadat was the president of Egypt. He was assassinated for making peace with Israel.
I got my words mixed up. Anwar al-Sharia, the attacking force, came from Egypt. And remember, the first thing that Mohammed Morsi, the new president of Egypt that we supported, that was the head of the Muslim Brotherhood, do you remember his demand of the President Obama? We want the blind sheikh. Get him, release him, and give him back to Egypt. And Ansar al-Sharia is an outfit that means we will save our captives. We will get our captives back. Well, they wanted to go in there, and they wanted to get Christopher Stevens, our ambassador, because Obama was not releasing the blind sheikh who planned the bombing of the Twin Towers.
And if you remember, and I appreciate the call, and Ansar al-Sharia is connected to al-Qaeda, Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri, the new head of al-Qaeda after bin Laden was killed, Ayman al-Zawahiri got on television a few days before 9/11, 2012, and urged his people to go into Libya and have them pay for one of the Libyan terrorists, al-Awlaki, who was killed by our drones, actually. Ayman al-Zawahiri said, go back and get retribution for that in Benghazi, and that's what they did. Let's go to Solomon. You're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Solomon, go right ahead. Solomon, are you with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I think what concerns me the most is not really the decision, because the decision is a human decision. People make decisions, bad decision, good decision. But what bothers me the most is the fact that the government decided to lie after the fact. They came and they said they lied to us openly, and no one is really punished for that. And that violates trust between the government and the people.
That came from Barack Obama and from Hillary Clinton. They didn't want the truth out. Thank you for calling, sir. And you're absolutely right. They lied about the anti-Muslim video. They knew they were lying about it, too. Rob is next. Rob, you're on with Mike Siegel and for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning at WRKO.
Hi, Mike. I just had a kind of a comment is that I don't have any doubt they formed this theory of a political nature to deny that it was a terrorist attack, but I just don't think that it would have made a difference, because all his voters are low or no information voters, and they would have never known anything about the Benghazi attacks anyway because of Obama's media anyway.
Well, the fact is that we have, because of online media, European media online, and conservative media online, until net neutrality kicks in anyway, this has gotten out. Now, Pelosi will tell you, and she said, Well, nobody really knows about Benghazi. Well, that's because the media won't cover it, and because it was a major catastrophe in terms of how this was done as a violation of the constitutional mandate for the commander-in-chief to protect those people, and he didn't do it. I thank you for calling, too, sir. Arthur, you're on with Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Okay, Mike, real quick, I know I don't have much time. First of all, I'd like everybody to remember the Valerie Plame Scooter Libby witch hunt, which, of course, wasn't political. And our Commander-in-Chief twice has done two things despicable. Once, he outed Navy SEAL teams when he announced who it was that took out Osama bin Laden, and this time he didn't go and save Navy SEALs. And for that, I think he's treasonous.
I would not disagree with you about that. Thank you. Bruce, you're on with Mike Siegel at WRKO. For Jeff Kuhner, you got less than a minute.
Benghazi, 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 Benghazi. It ain't going to go away. We're not going to let it go away till heads roll. USA, take it or leave it. We're here to stay.
All right, sir. Thanks for the poetry to wrap up the program. All I can say is thank you for all the great calls. It's been great to be here for Jeff Kuhner, and Jeff got a deserved day off. Let me just say that this is vitally important. It involves national security. And by the way, it involves security in terms of our military. They have to have confidence in the commander-in-chief. The military risking their lives every single day, whether it's Afghanistan or Iraq or in South Korea with North Korea making trouble now. Bottom line is, we have to have these people believing that they are supported. George W. Bush had no question with that with our military. This president has nothing but questions. Thank you for listening. Good to have you with us. My name is Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Be good to yourself and the world, and the world will be good to you.
News at the top and bottom, talk in between.
And you and I are here to tell them that's enough.
This is AM 680 WRKO, Boston.